Boyle Sports. Don't just bet, choose wisely.
Hello and welcome back to On the Wire, brought to you by our sponsors Boyle Sports, and we've got a fantastic weekend of action in store with the Boyle Sports Irish Grand National. We're going to be looking ahead to the incredibly prestigious race that comes on Easter Monday, alongside a few of the other Grade 1 contests over the weekend. Plenty to look forward to, and we've got a fantastic panel of guests to come and preview what is a fantastic weekend at Fairyhouse. But before we get stuck into the main video, I'd like to remind you of a fantastic offer from our sponsors, Boyle Sports. You can bet €10 to get €70 worth of bonuses. Make sure to scan the QR code that's going to be on screen right now, or click the link in the description down below to avail of a brilliant offer. Plenty of free bet offers on store with Boyle Sports, so make sure to get involved and avail of what is a brilliant offer. Well, I'm delighted to be joined by Gavin Lynch, Mark Boylan and Donn McClean to discuss all things Boyle Sports Irish Grand National this weekend. It's a fantastic weekend of action with graded races that we're going to be looking at before looking at the National itself. Mark, come to you first. Obviously, before we get into the graded action, this is really a proper weekend of racing at Fairyhouse, and they've done a fantastic job to make it better and better over the years.
For sure. And look at atmosphere-wise, it's getting there every year. It's getting better. And in recent years, we've had kind of "Hello, Hey Baby" coming from the stands good and loud, and it's not something you get at too many Irish tracks. And look at the distance between Cheltenham and Fairyhouse. It's obviously that does hinge then on your quality. You do get to come to this meeting, but this year we've got a good run. It's a good stretch between the two, and hopefully we're obviously dealing at the moment without our final Grade 1 fields, but you'd hope that when we do get them, it'll be reflective of that gap. Like last year, you had Jade DeGrugy, 17, 18 days between Cheltenham. You have no excuses this time around. I suppose maybe Willie Mullins' team could be slightly different because he is trying to maybe hunt down that man Dan Skelton in Britain. Some of them that might have been here are now in Britain, but I still think we've got plenty to look forward to. Yeah, the Irish National on Monday. If you get the winner of that, you go home happy whatever happens.
Yeah, certainly. Look, the first Grade 1 of the weekend is the WillowWarm Gold Cup. And Gavin, I feel it's been a recurring theme on this programme throughout the entirety of the season that we've been talking about Ballyburn. We've got him now over 2.5 miles. This seemingly, if we can look past his indiscretions in the Brown advisory, is probably the ideal trip for him. Would you trust him with probably the likely short price you're going to have to take for him to go and win?
I wouldn't, Andrew. I would not know. 11 to 10. I think there's better 11 to 10 shots to be had. We saw first time out over fences that he was good at Punchestown, but then when you saw him at Kempton, you were saying to yourself, he's not as good going right-handed. He was decent at Leopardstown. He was very poor the last day. His jumping was bad. Now, I'd imagine they're going to change tactics, and they're probably going to make the running with him and let him bowl along. Paul Townend said that after the race at Cheltenham, the Brown advisory. But at 11 to 10, I think it's too short. I mean, there's definitely dangers in there. Coming from Close Sutton. I personally prefer Spindleberry. She's getting the £7. She was good in Cork. She was very, very good the last day in Fairyhouse against Bioluminescence. I think she's got a solid each-way chance. There will be lads that'll back Ballyburn, but I won't be one of them.
Yeah, Donn, what's your thoughts on Ballyburn, I suppose? Plenty of people have had their, 2 pence about it, whether he should go back hurdling next year, whether he just needs 2.5 miles. He's a tricky horse to work out at the moment.
Yeah, he is, Andrew. I suppose the nature of him, he's a fashionable horse. He's always popular. He's always high in the market. So by definition, therefore, he's a horse that you generally, and the way I look at racing anyway, you look to take him on. But that said, as Gavin said, I think this could be close to optimum for him. 2.5 miles. And allowed bowl along in front. We could see a different Ballyburn, but like Gavin, I won't be with him at a short price. In Atlantique, if he takes his chance, he's interesting. Although, he was well beaten at Leopardstown the last day, and just in the back of my mind is the fact that his form kind of petered out last season. And during the spring, he was very good early in the season, as he was this season, and then he was pretty well beaten at Cheltenham. He was beaten at Aintree, beaten at Punchestown last season. So that's just in the back of my mind. And Like Gavin, I think Spindleberry is very interesting. Like, this has probably been her plan since she beat Bioluminescence the last day at Fairyhouse over more or less this course and distance. Like, Bioluminescence is a 146 rated horse. Now, she was getting £10, but that was only her second run over fences, and she's got a really good record at Fairyhouse. She's won twice, and in her only other run there, she finished second behind Jade de Grugy in the Honeysuckle Hurdle last year. She had fun way behind her then. So look, she's got a little bit to find on ratings. She does get the £7 mare's allowance. But I think given that, she hasn't been to the other spring festivals yet, and after she won at Fairyhouse the last day, Willie did say that maybe she'd come on straight here. So I think she's an interesting contender in here.
Yeah, certainly. Looking at it, Mark, I suppose the only other horse that I saw potentially making a play in this race was maybe Champ Kiley. He's been a bit hit and miss, but he was pretty impressive when he beat Jeannot Lapin the last day.
Yeah, look, I'm kind of not sure whether he's the force of old. I could be wrong, but he's the type of horse that would pop up and win this. We've seen Flame Bearers come for Willie and do it. It is a race where you can get a result like that. So I'm not going to turn my nose up at it, but I just think Ballyburn, it hasn't gone right this year. It's kind of like the XO theory. You have a very good, you have a very bad, a very good, a very bad. Kempton seemed to put the cat amongst the pigeons. And Cheltenham just did so much wrong. I actually think to get as close he didn't run badly in Cheltenham, even if it was disappointing, but he got a silly price in the day. I agree with that. I think Spindleberry, there's definitely a day in her of this type of nature, but I still struggle to sit here and go, right, 160 Ballyburn, 142 Spindleberry. Like, you're going to need your man to do an awful lot wrong, I think, for the tables to be turned. It'll come down to price for me and what the final field is shaped like as to whether I get involved in that type of territory. Willie has 7 in here. Whether he'll run all 7, I don't know. Keita Bourbon is in the Irish National as well. He's obviously been to Aintree, been to Cheltenham too. If you did fancy something each way, I know there's a little bit of a shape to it. I'm not saying you definitely get the 3 places. I won't be without the 3 places in the day, but it could cut slightly. I still think I'd be with Ballyburn, because I think just natural ability, he's a good way clear these, but it isn't a rock solid bomb proof 6-5 11-10 territory. It's, as Gavin said, if you are kind of happy to be prudent and sit back, you'll find better opportunities than those.
Well, I'm getting a bit of a nosebleed, Mark. You've been against Ballyburn all year, and now suddenly you're seeing the light when everyone's jumped off the ship.
No. I look at it. I liked him at Cheltenham. I just didn't like the price. I just that was the problem, really. I didn't get the nice stuff that some of these other clever guys got. But listen, he is just very, very talented. He is. Any of these horses, I think that he stacks up better than them, and I just don't. That type of race, Grade 1 horse, Grade 1 race. Oh, it's not my favorite. No job to take that on.
Yeah, very much so. It's going to be an interesting WillowWarm Gold Cup. Also on Easter Sunday is that Honeysuckle Mares Novices Hurdle, and we've got kind of the main protagonists from the Mares Novice Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival. I suspect all of them will run against each other. Air of Entitlement is in there, 6.5's in there. Caroline Bamboo, Maureen, who obviously got no roll of the dice at Cheltenham. Gavin, like, to me, at Cheltenham, 6.5 kind of got his pocket picked. But I suppose, looking at the way that the race finished, you'd think Air of Entitlement would potentially be a better horse over 2.5 miles.
I'd say I backed 6.5 at Cheltenham, and the whole way through the race it was going perfect, but it nearly went too perfect for Keith because he got there too soon. But it was a good ride. I'm not complaining with Keith. He's a brilliant jockey. Air of Entitlement has won over 2.5 at Down Royal. 6.5 did win over 2-2 at Fairyhouse. I would imagine that no matter what happens, if they all run on Sunday, Keith will be the very, very last person to challenge. He'll wait and wait and wait based on what happened at Cheltenham. But I think that the ground at the moment was issued this morning, Thursday morning, as yielding to soft after 35 mils. They also have another 25 mils coming. It's only 10 minutes up the road from me here. So I think the ground's going to be soft, really soft on Sunday. And I think the Big Westerner, she's the highest rated mare in the race off 140. She stays further. She was a little bit unlucky in the Albert Bartlett. I'm not saying it cost her the race, but certainly cost her a length or two. She will fine with the step down and trip because she travels very strongly, jumps well. I think on the soft ground, I know she's only 6-4 and the other 2 mares are 9-2. I think she'll take a lot of beating. And another one that deserves a mention is Hey Sunshine, 3 out of 3 over hurdles. She's progressive. She's a lovely mare. So it's a really, really good Grade 1 as you'd expect. But I think maybe the Big Westerner, you're not really going to get a guide on the jockey bookings as regards which one they think is the best, because Dara will ride her and Rachel will ride Air of Entitlement just like at Cheltenham. But yeah, for me, I'm going to go for the Big Westerner. I backed her in the Bartlett and I'll back her again. I'd say if I get 6-4, 2-1.
Yeah, I can see that. Don, what about yourself? Would you be more going down the big Westerner route or favouring the Mayor's Novice form?
Yeah, and look, I can see where Gavin's coming from. I think the big Western is probably short enough, and I'm not certain the drop down and trip is going to be a positive for her. Like, she's a half sister to Stay Away Faye. She's all stamina. She was staying on well at the end of the Albert Bartlett, the last day over 3 miles, and yeah, she was a little bit unlucky. I think Wingman made a mistake at the second last, and she just kind of got caught in the backwash by. At the same time, Paul Tanner was coming down the outside and Jasmine DeVoe, but I still think the best horse in the race won it. I think she was still the second best horse in the race. But look, she ran really well. She won the Doran's Pride Hurdle at Limerick on soft ground, and that's always a good point, or often a good pointer to the Albert Bartlett. But back down to 2.5, I don't think that will suit her. Whereas by contrast, I think the step up and trip to 2.5 will really suit her of entitlement. Like, she was so good at Cheltenham. She showed such a good attitude. It was only a second run over hurdles. She beat Ballybow and Nasty at Dan Royal the time before. That was on St. Stephen's Day. That form's been working out well. Her dam's the half sister to Rogue Angel, an Irish national winner. So you'd think that like 2 miles and a furlong at Cheltenham, it had to be an absolute minimum for her. And that's how she ran as well. Her finishing speed percent was 106%. And she was fastest through each of the last 3 furlongs. Look, 6.5, if you were on, you have to have thought that you were home. And the step up to 2.5, that shouldn't be a negative for her either. She's a stayer on the flat. She finished third in the Irish Cesarovich. She's got a flat rating of 94. She's a stayer on the flat. So I wouldn't say that's a negative for 6.5, but I just think, and she's only had 2 runs over hurdles as well. So they're both really exciting mares. I just think there's more to come from Merv Entitlement. She was a big enough price at Cheltenham. It was her first run since Christmas. And I think given that she's stepping up in trip, she's got form on soft ground as well. She won at Cork on soft ground, so I wouldn't worry about the rain for her. I just think Merv Entitlement, I'm looking forward to her for next season as well. It'll be very interesting to see what she does, but I think she's the one they all have to beat here.
Air of Entitlement for Donn. I suppose, Mark, looking at the market, the first 3 in there, you've got 2 Henry de Bromhead horses, you've a Gavin Cromwell horse, you've got a Mayor's Novice Hurdle at Fairyhouse, and there's no Willie Mullins horse in the first 3 in the betting. Are we sleeping on the likes of a Hey Sunshine, Caroline Bamboo, Maureen, or are they, just perhaps slightly more limited than what we're used to from Willie?
Look, you've seen there that Willie can obviously pop up with ones from left field, but I don't feel on paper it's the strongest team he comes here with. I haven't been, I know Maureen didn't get a fair crack at Cheltenham, but she was one I was looking to take on the day anyway. I do think that it's Gavin Cromwell at 6.5. I traded 1 to 25. Like, absolutely, you got really, really chinned here, and I think exactly as Gavin's pointed out, style of ride is going to be different here, and it's not to knock what Keith did, because you're on a mare that stays further in the flash, letting her roll and bowl. I think it makes sense. But you've seen in that race before in Cheltenham, Tell Me Something Girl coming late, being late to challenge. I think there's good value in it. I think Henry might have even touched on it in their tactics with an Air of Entitlement this year. Like, half a length, I think, was what separated them. I'd be very disappointed if 6.5 didn't turn that around. And it's purely a trip-related thing with the big Westerner. Every bit of rain is going to help, going to bring her into it. But I just think at the prices, she's very well found at this stage. There'll be a bit of a dilemma there, you'd imagine, for connections as to whether the 3 mile Novice Hurdle at Punchestown, given that, I think Derry Hassan Paddy is out for a break, you're taking on Jasmine DeVoe again, probably, and what else is kind of in that division? I'd say it'd be a 50-50. It sounds like she's coming here, and this is the likeliest option, but for me, I think that 3 mile back of your mind thing with her, and then you're taking on a very, very classy mare like 6.5 at this trip. I rate the Big Western pretty high. I think she'll be a brand advisory mare next year potentially, but I just think in this set of circumstances on this day, and even 6.5, like, it's not like she's had this big, long, hard campaign either. Like, she was on the flat, wrapped up the end of September, had 3 months off, 1 spin over hurdles, goes to Cheltenham, and you're still getting a relatively fresh mare here. At the end of the season, that's something I'm always looking for. How many miles are on the clock? How early have we started? And I just like that angle with her. So no, I do think, I thought the best mare didn't win the Mayor's Novice Hurdle in Cheltenham, and I'd like to see her get it right here in the Honeysuckle.
Yeah, very much contrasting views from the 3 lads on the Mayor's Novices Hurdle. The Grade 2 on Monday, the open 2.5 mile hurdle is the Rathbury and Glenview Studs Hurdle. Probably not a vintage renewal of the race. Obviously, old-timers like Asterion Forlange in there. The mare Cala Conti, slightly disappointed in the Mayor's Hurdle. And then quite a lot of horses that ran in the Coral Cup. Jimmy DeSoy, the winner. Ballyadam, who ran a very good race. Horses down the field like Beacon Edge and Xander Clegane in there as well. this is a complete head scratcher of a race, Mark. I suppose, where do you even start in trying to find the winner of this?
Yeah, be honest now, this type of race, I think it should be probably a handicap and make it a much more appealing race. Because is there a need for something like this in the program? There's lots of options for these horses to go elsewhere. But look, we're still trying to find the winner. But I always feel this is kind of a floating race that is kind of forgettable to come the end of the season. I thought Jimmy Desai, we don't know necessarily where his ceiling lies just yet. To do what he did off the back of a year out nearly, that was only Willie Mullins could do things like that, you know. And it looks like if he can step it up another notch again, that he should be able to do something at this level. He's still only 6 as well, you know. He's very unexposed over hurdles, and that was a team with the handicap hurdles at Cheltenham this year, the ones with the fewer runs, and even the handicap chase as well, the minimum run meters, let's say, if you want to put them that way, they were the ones that stood out. And look, he's 153 now. He could be better than that still again. So no, look, he's probably where my pen falls at the moment, but again, we don't have a final field just yet, and ground will be worth keeping an eye on there. But he's won a maiden hurdle on heavy, he's won on goodness off the Cheltenham. I think he looks pretty versatile, but he's just still an unknown quantity for all these horses. Been to Cheltenham 2 years now. I think he's pretty useful in this capacity.
Yep, no, completely see that. Gavin, we're relying on your expertise to get to the bottom of this one, because it is a bit of a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, I think Jimmy's the bet. I think he'll win. I think he could turn out to be a Stayers Hurdle candidate next season. He wins the Coral Cup, so he said. Ballyadam is £5 better off for 4 lengths, but he's a 10-year-old. He's as old as me or Donn. Jimmy Desai is only a 6-year-old. Sorry, Donn. Jimmy Desai is.
All right, Gavin.
So, Jimmy Desai is the Mark Boylan, and Ballyadam is the me and Donn. But
lay in that case, lads. You know what to do.
And I think Jimmy Desai, just such a performance for a year off. He won really well in the Coral Cup, and as I said to you, I think he should win this, really. I'm not saying he'd be a big price, but he should win. And I certainly, if he doesn't go chasing, I could see him being, a candidate, an each-way candidate for next year's Stayers Hurdle, perhaps.
Donn, are you going to make it a clean sweep for Jimmy Desai?
Yeah, it's hard to pick holes in him, really, Andrew. Like, you know, like Ballyadam, what a horse he is. He's had 18 runs over hurdles, and he still ran a massive race in the Coral Cup. He came there on the far side. Interestingly, he hasn't run at Fairyhouse since he won the Royal Bond Hurdle as a novice. That's about 110 years ago, I'd say. But look, he keeps on putting up those performances, and as Gavin said, he's slightly better off with Jimmy Desai at the weights. Maxim is in here as well. There were only 4 horses in the race last year, and Maxim was still there at the final flight when he came down. He was unlucky to fall. I'm not sure if he'd have beaten Bruin up the storm, but he might have, and he might take his chance here. He won the Boylan Hurdle as well. Like he was pulled up in the Coral Cup, so you have to allow him that. That obviously wasn't his running, but he won the Boylan Hurdle before that, so he has to come into it if the field does cut up. But no, Jimmy Desai, I had a look at the Coral Cup again this morning, and he was so good. Like he won with tons in hand. He came away and won by 3 lengths, but he had way more in hand than that. Impose Trois, who finished second, probably didn't enhance the form greatly at Aintree, finished 4th behind Wellington Arch, but it still wasn't a bad run. But it was Jimmy Desai's first run back since Punchestown last year. He's only had 6 runs over hurdles. There should be much more to come from him. So look, we don't know how they're betting on it yet. He might be quite short, but it's very hard to see against him. And depending on how they bet, he might even be a bet.
Yeah, so a clean sweep for Jimmy Desai in the Rathbury and Glenview Studs Hurdle. We'll be moving on to the Boyle Sports Irish Grand National, but first of all, we're going to take a little bit of a halftime break, and I was lucky to catch up with Brian O'Keefe, a representative from Boyle Sports, to go through all the markets for this weekend. Yes, delighted to be joined by Brian O'Keefe from our sponsors, Boyle Sports, to look through some of the markets for this weekend. Before we get stuck into them, Brian, I suppose this is a huge weekend for Boyle Sports as a team. The Irish Grand National, such an illustrious race, and it just seems to be getting bigger and better every year.
Yeah, it's the real jewel in our crown of sponsorships, Andrew, I have to say. This day next month, we do have the lock-in over at Newbury for the first year, which is very, very exciting. But yeah, the National, it's the race that really captures the attention of the general public. It's a brilliant race for stories, which is what I love. Big trainers, small trainers, it doesn't matter. They all have a chance. We've seen Dermot McLaughlin, Tom Gibney, Dot Love, Willie Mullins. Everybody's got a big chance in the National. Yeah, we really can't wait. A little bit later this year as well, which means we've got plenty of form on offer, including the favourite Haiti Colours.
Yeah, no, looks a fantastic race this year. And I suppose from your perspective, looking at the market, how is it shaping up at the moment? And I suppose looking at maybe even anti-post betting, what looks to be one of your bigger liabilities?
Yeah, so we had our second forfeits yesterday. I think there's 49 left in it. I think we lost 12 of the top 14. So Better Days Ahead is going to carry top weight. He was due to carry 10 stone 13, so big bump for that one. But Haiti Calor is in there at 5-1. That's been quite strong over the last couple of days. 13-2, two or so days ago for Rebecca Curtis. She's already won a Scottish National. Be nice to add an Irish one to her name. But the big liability, it is building. It's High Class Hero for Willie Mullins. 14-1 into eights. He's already won the Grand National Aintree. He's already won it there. He might just win it as well in December in Wales, but a clean sweep would be something special. So he's eights from 14s. The one I like, Johnny Who's been quite steady at 10s, but there's still plenty of time between now and then, Andrew, and it can all change.
Yeah, very much so. Do you see at this time of the year, I suppose, even both sides of the Irish Sea with Willie Mullins going for the Trainers' Championship again, that you get plenty of these Mullins horses getting potentially overbet at times because people are just kind of mauling in on the bandwagon?
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly in the UK, you'd imagine it's probably plan B or C for a lot of horses running at the likes of Cheltenham or Plumpton and even Sandown next week as Willie pursues that championship for the second year in a row. I imagine Dan Skelton's probably a little bit concerned, but yeah, plenty of money for the Mullins horses, particularly in the UK, Andrew. And he doesn't have a whole lot in the Boyle Sports Irish Grand National, but the way the market's going, he might just have the right one.
Yeah, looks like it. High Class Hero, probably the ride of Paul Townend as well, should he be back from injury. Looking at the other Grade 1 races of the weekend, the weekend's obviously transformed over the last number of years. We've got some properly good races. The WillowWarm Gold Cup, I assume, revolves around whether punters want to be the forgiving types or the not so forgiving types about Ballyburn.
Yeah, they say you can always forgive a horse a run, don't they? But 5-4 Ballyburn, we have him in at. He is quite short. Willie dominates the market. 9-2 Ile Atlantique. He's often backed, as we know. He does wear those colours, doesn't he? Spindleberry in there at 9-2 and Champ Kylie at 5. So the top four in the market for Willie, and it is 12-1 bar. But yeah, you would have to be a brave man, I think, to back Ballyburn. He was good at the DRF, but he did disappoint at Cheltenham. But he does have the X factor, doesn't he, Andrew? He does have that little bit something special about him. And I think that's what the public love. And I think that's why the public like to back him.
Yeah, very much so. From a bookmaker standpoint, is he the type of horse that you're generally trying to take on, though? Because he is a horse that plenty of people love. He's always kind of had plenty of hype around him. He's always goes off shorter prices as a result, not necessarily dependent on what he's actually achieved.
Yeah, he is one you'd like at the top of the market and you'd like to take plenty on. I mean, look up just below him, Ile Atlantique. Some of his chase form is absolutely brilliant. I mean, beating Firefox, he bet Waterford Whispers as well in his chasing debut. It did disappoint, to be fair, in the Irish Arkle, but he could bounce back. Spindleberry, I think she's a mare really, really going places. She's got plenty of class about her, and she put away that mare of Gavin Cromwell's very easily, didn't she? Bioluminescence, who's pretty useful. Champ Kylie, even, he's on the comeback trail. I thought he was impressive in the Flying Bolt. So we don't mind having money in the kitty on Ballyburn. I think we've got plenty going for us. Maybe even Slade Steele will bounce back and show some of the star quality he had over hurdles.
Yeah, very much so. The other Grade 1 on Easter Sunday is the Honeysuckle Mares Novice Hurdle. We've got the big Westerner in there who's obviously potentially dropping down in trip from the Albert Bartlett, and then plenty from the Mares Novice Hurdle going up in trip at the likes of Air of Entitlement, 6.5. What way is the market swinging? Are they backing the Bartlett form or the Mares Novice form?
For now, it's the Bartlett form. The big Westerner in there at 6-4. I thought she was a little bit unlucky at Cheltenham. She got shuffled back at a pretty crucial stage as they turned for home. And I know our ambassador, Robbie Power, is a big, big fan of her. He thought she was a good thing at Cheltenham. Air of Entitlement in there as well for the same connections, 4-1 and 6.5, the same price representing that Mares Novice form. I could see 6.5 possibly turning that one around now, Andrew, I have to say. Aurora Vega 6s along with Maureen. Caroline Bamboo, I might have jinxed that one at Cheltenham myself. I really fancied her that day. She ran a good race, but it's hard to see her turning the form around with the other two. But yeah, I think it could well be 6.5 stay on that good ground. I'm looking out my window, the sun is shining, and I think Peter Rowe's got a bit of a job on his hands to keep that ground nice and damp when he's watering.
Yeah, very much so. Look, when you go into a race like that and you've got two De Bromhead horses, you've a Gavin Cromwell horse, are you always a little bit concerned that you've got Willie Mullins horses lurking in there? Or as the market's forming, I suppose you wouldn't mind one of these horses going in at a bigger price?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the top three, I think they're all going to have plenty of supporters. The Mullins horses are fairly big priced, as you said. Aurora Vega, Maureen in there around sixes, Caroline Bamboo tens. It's going to be interesting to see if one of the Closutton few will be backed. But yeah, I imagine liabilities will probably be building at the top of the market, Andrew. So big price winner. We can't get too greedy, but I certainly wouldn't mind. And if punters want to take on favourites as well at Fairyhouse all across the weekend, we will be money back as a free bet if you're second to the SP Fab. So plenty of reasons to take them on, and we wouldn't mind some of them getting beaten. But maybe Ballyburn would be okay with it.
It does seem like a fantastic weekend. I'm sure, as we said earlier, this is just an incredibly exciting weekend for you and your team, though. You know, you've got fantastic racing, huge buzz on Easter Monday. There always is, crowds going up and up every year, and it's fantastic to be in association with Fairyhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even last year, it was a bit dampened by the weather, but the crowds were there. I think it was a record day nearly for Fairyhouse. As I said, it's a race that really captures the attention of the nation. The viewing figures are going to be huge on RTE, ITV. I think TG Carr are broadcasting the Saturday card as well. So it's a big deal for us. It's a big deal for Fairyhouse. And I believe it's Peter Rowe's last Fairyhouse, or last Irish national rather, in charge of Fairyhouse. So it'll be quite emotional. Peter's been brilliant to us over the years, and I think he's going to continue to do brilliant things with the HRI. But I can't wait. The whole of Boyle Sports can't wait. This is the event we count down to every single year.
Well, thanks for your time, Brian. Hopefully you have a fantastic weekend. Really looking forward to the action.
Cheers, Andrew. Best of luck picking a winner. And don't forget, 6 places each way at Boyle Sports as well in the big one.
Great to catch up with Brian from our sponsors, Boyle Sports, and this is their marquee race and marquee event of the year, the Boyle Sports Irish Grand National. And despite actually 18 coming out at confirmation stage, still looks a really good race. Mark, we'll start off with the market leader here, Haiti Colour, a really impressive winner of the National Hunt Chase. Also brings in form with Now Is the Hour, who more than likely would have come second if not given him a race at Cheltenham. It's great to see Rebecca Curtis, rolling the dice here on this type of horse. He's in the form of his life. He's been improving all season. He's a good jumper. Seems to be a lot in his favour, to be honest, but he is a pretty short price for a race of this nature as a result.
Yeah, that's the trade-off you're facing here. Actually, I spoke to Rebecca Curtis this week for the big interview there, Shield, and spoke to her about the horse's mark, because I thought particularly he's got away pretty light. Like he's 6 higher than when he's won a National Hunt Chase, £100,000 race. And you go down and you think of what you would get in Ireland for winning a similar. I've gone back looking this season at different rises that you would have got. I think the average is £9 for a race that'd be 40 grand or more to a winner handicap chase. And you're looking at like Battle Over Dian's getting 8 for winning a nose in Galway. Stutzakini gets 9 for winning a Tri-Town. Percival Agawa gets 11 for a Paddy Power. Even like on Pound Darrag's 10 for Dublin Racefest. It's like to get 6 and come here and do it. He's £1 lower in Ireland as well than he is in England, or in Britain, I should say. We're obviously dealing with Welsh representation here. I think it's an attractive piece of handicapping still. And even the fact that you're coming here and he's £1 lower in Ireland than he is in England, Irish horses would have tried to take him on in the National Hunt Chase. We're running off higher over there, fair enough. But he's still a little lower now over here. He's got that profile that you like for the race, in the sense of, I always would like a horse gets out in the first 4, can jump, get into a rhythm and travel. And that's just seems to be what this horse does. So I think he's the rightful favourite. But this is a race that can lend itself to upsets down the year. So if you are going to back him, I wouldn't be against throwing another dart at the board at something bigger price as well. But he is where he should be. Now is the hour. I think now that he was in the process of giving him plenty to think about. I don't think he was done with just yet. And it surprised me nearly on the day how well he travelled on good to soft ground. Because you see how effective he was in Haydock on absolutely bottomless stuff as a novice hurdler. Like I think every bit of rain that falls is going to bring him into it. But is it an ideal prep to come here on the back of it wasn't a nice tumble. The other guy has all the confidence. Everything's really smooth. And the prices between them aren't huge different. I don't see a lot between them, but it feels like, the flow has gone a lot better for Haiti Colours, I would feel anyway, kind of coming into this. And handicap wise, to get that type of rise after winning at Cheltenham, we don't see it too. Even Johnny Who, like he nearly would have won a Kim Muir backed as if they thought he had plenty in hand. I think he comes here 6 higher. Again, that's very attractive. I just think some of those say if that novice type has enough experience to come here, that's where I'll be looking in this type of race to find the winner.
Yeah, very understandable. Gavin, I know you quite like Now Is the Hour, who obviously, as we discussed there with Mark, was running a big race. I personally thought he was beat, but he was going to be a very, very good second in the National Hunt Chase. Do you see a world where he can reverse that form?
I probably could, yeah, on the ground. He was the one sickener I had for the Cheltenham, to be honest. Even if he was placed, it would have been great based on a few each-way multiples and stuff. So, look, he ran very well. He travelled very strongly down the inside. He came off the bridle as they turned in and then was starting to get involved again. A friend of mine was talking to Keith that night at Cheltenham, and he said he didn't think he was fully done with, to be honest. I think the ground is critical for Now Is the Hour. As I said to you, the ground this morning at the moment in Fairyhouse is yielding to soft. I think it'll get softer. It's going to really, really suit him. I could see him going off favourite. I actually like, in general, I like three of Gavin Cromwell's horse in this. I thought Noble Birth had a massive chance. I backed him at 60-61 for this a couple of weeks ago, based on the ground being good, but that's obviously going to change now, so a bit of a dampener on that. And also, I think that Bioluminescence, if this race was run last Monday instead of next Monday, she wouldn't even be running because she has to have soft ground. I see she's 16-1 at the minute. And if Spindleberry goes and wins the WillowWarm at the weekend, I could see her going off 8 or 10-1. I think she's definitely got a chance. And obviously, we should also talk about the horse from Naas that ran off 135. It came down 2 out. I'm just trying to find
Kinter Calanese.
Yeah, Kinter Calanese. Like, you could say it's maybe a winner without a penalty. You can't say for sure it would have won in Naas, but you know, the chances are it was travelling best. I'm sure it was odds on in Betfair at the time. One thing about it and Noble Birth is that I'm not saying they jump to their left, but they just slightly correct themselves at the fences. When they're going right-handed, they just tend a little bit to the left. So just if it was left-handed, I'd be more in favour of Kinter Calanese. So yeah, I think the four, if you'll allow me against the field, for me, be Noble Birth, Bioluminescence, Kinter Calanese, and Now Is the Hour. Like, the reasonable price is 25-1, 16-1, 12-1, and 8-1. So for me, if I had to pick one of them, I'd probably go for Now Is the Hour, to be honest.
Yep, can see that. Donn, I know going into the Cheltenham Festival, you were very keen on Better Days Ahead for the Brown Advisory. Ran a pretty solid race in third. He's propping up the weights at the moment off top weight. Do you think this is a bit of a kind of stretch too far? Novices do tend to have a good record in the race, though.
Oh yeah, look, he's got a really good profile for the race, Andrew. He's only had 4 runs over fences. I thought, as you say, he ran well in the Brown Advisory. I think the step up and trip would probably suit him, actually. I think he's a real staying horse. 3 miles 5 should suit him well, or an extended 3 miles 5. It's just the weight. Like, you know, you could see it before the forfeit stage there yesterday that he was probably going to end up with top weight. And that's exactly what's happened. Like, Aya Maximus did win it under 11 stone 1. Intense Raffles won under 11 stone 4 last year. So the last 2 winners have actually carried plenty of weight. Before them, you go back to Arajuk 11-4 in 2017. And before Arajuk, Comanche Court in 2000 was the last horse to carry more than 11 stones. So the Irish National, it is a race that, you know, you kind of start at the bottom of the handicap and work your way up, as opposed to the other way around. So I can see Better Days Ahead running really well, and maybe running into a place. But I just think the weight, it's going to be difficult for him to go and win it. Like the lads, I do like Eddie Collier. Like, he's a logical favourite. He's only had those 4 runs over fences, and really good preparation by Rebecca Curtis to go and give him a nice run over hurdles at Newbury before going to Cheltenham and winning well. And yeah, look, I know Now Is the Hour. I'm sure he wasn't done with, but I don't think he'd have won. I had a look at the race again this morning, and he had come under a ride from a little way out, and Eddie Collier just travelled so well for Ben Jones. I think Sean Bowen Road had to ride Resplendent Grey in the race, so easy for me to say not. So Ben Jones got the ride on Eddie Collier, and he did everything right. And that race is working out well. Rock My Way was second, ran well in the Scottish Grand National there on Saturday off a £1 higher mark, finished 5th. And Clark Kent was 8th, and he ran a massive race, obviously, at the Scottish National. And that National Hunt Chase, of course, it's a different race this year to the race that it used to be. It's a handicap, but I'd say it still will have an impact. Like, Shut the Front Door won it, came from that race on here. Niche Market came from the National Hunt Chase on to the Irish National. So it's kind of, even though it's a handicap now, it's still got that profile, staying young horse, progressive, staying chaser, who should do well in the Irish National. And now is the year. It's kind of mad that now is the year. Hasn't won over fences yet. But as Gavin said, he had that big run in the Prestige Hurdle at Haydock, and he was running a big race in the National Hunt Chase. So he's interesting, off just a £2 higher mark. Johnny Who, if he goes here, like he hit the front early enough at Cheltenham the last day, and then got run down by Daily Present, and then he was kind of rallying again on the run in. He's off a mark of 146, so £6 higher than he was then. Canal End is a really interesting horse, I think. Now, he may not get into the race. He still needs 7 more to come out in order to get in. But like he was very good at Navan the last day. It was a listed novice handicap chase. He stayed on really well to win well. And it didn't look likely at the top of the home straight, but once the stamina kicked in, he really improved for that. And his time was really good. It was the only time on the day that dipped below Racing Post par. He was over a second faster than the next fastest through the final 4 furlongs. And actually, he was almost 3 seconds faster through the last 4 furlongs than the winner of the 2 mile 1 furlong chase was later on. There were only 2 chases run on the day. So I think he'll improve again for stepping up in trips. So if he gets into the race, Peter Fagg's horse, then he could run a massive race. And then so he'd be number 1 on my list if he gets in. And number 2 on my list then is Kintyre Calanese that Gavin mentioned. He was running a big race in the Leinster National. Look, we don't know if he'd have won or not, but I think it looked like he'd have gone very close, and had to feel for Anna McGuinness. She did everything right on him. She was just very unlucky. Just a little bit in the back of my mind is that at Fairyhouse before Christmas, he did look like he was going to win his race against Judicious Alain, and he kind of didn't seem to want to go and win it. So he is a horse who can travel well into his races, but he's got a really good profile. He's only had 4 runs over fences. He's got a lovely mark of 135. Tom Gibney, of course, has previous in the Irish National. He's a Liam Nabarney on intense raffles. He's won it twice. And yeah, Kintyre Calanese, if Canal End doesn't get into the race, he'd be top of my list.
Very good from Donn. We'll go back, Mark. You said if you wanted to fancy something at a bigger price, obviously we've got the National and Chase winner, the third, a horse that might have finished second if he hadn't fallen. With the Kim Muir 1, 2. There's plenty to kind of pick apart, even at the bigger prices.
Yeah, look, I don't know if he definitely runs, waiting to see whether he does, but if Key to Bourbon lined up, I think 20 to 1 is too big. Okay, it's not your ideal prep. He's coming here off the back of being brought down at Aintree, unseated at Cheltenham, but I thought on both occasions he wasn't a spent force either time. He's rated 148. I think he's better than that. And the way he hasn't exactly had a hard campaign through the year either. Willie Mullins can do these kind of extraordinary things. If you're looking for someone to try come back from a spring that has gone this way, it is him, I think. He had plenty of weight, but he just could be kind of the classier. But I probably prefer him over High Class Hero. I just felt with last time in Grade 1 company, he's looked pretty comfortable. Didn't do anything wrong at the time. The way the race even fell apart, I kind of think that he nearly could have won potentially at Grade 1 for all it was a long way out. And he was well backed as well on the day as well. You like to see that coming here then back to a handicap. He has other entries in the spring. He has Bet365 Gold Cup and WillowWarm Gold Cup even on the Sunday. So I can't say for definite that he is definitely here, but geez, he makes sense to me now as a horse that could be, one of these that can go and step on to maybe be graded company again back after winning an Irish National. Just thought 20s is too big for him. But look, 80 Glores is my number 1 shout. I agree with Donn and Kintyre Calanese because I think there's 100% a horse in there, but there's a little bit too many 2s and 3s maybe to have him as my outright number 1 pick when you look through his form. He has flattered to deceive at times, but then again, this is the day you're going to see the very best of him. It sounds like the whole year has been dedicated to trying to get him to this point for connections that love the Irish National. And I suppose, look, he won't carry cash in mind, but if I am to get beat, the horse I'd love to see beat me is any second now. At 13, having been second in Nationals, second here last year off a pound higher. He's, entry form. He's been knocking on the door of Nationals over there. If he could ever get one on the board, I'll no problem taking that defeat if he was to come and do me. It'd be some result. But look, it's a great race. There's so many stories in it, but they'd be my 2 plays for 80 Clore and Key to Bourbon each way at 20s.
Yep, can see the case for both. I was probably on the Kintyre Calanese train myself. Going to give him one more chance in this race. Obviously was going to go very close in the Leinster National last time. As usual, to complete the show, we're going to do our 60-second selections, which is a chance for the 3 lads and myself to go through any of the other races or even the races we've discussed and probably discuss some of our best bets. I just have one. It will come as no surprise with the trainer involved. But the Novice Handicap Chase on Sunday, I'm going to take a chance on Conyers Hill. He was given an awful lot to do in the Grand Annual of 131, back of 129, back in a novice race as well. And I do believe on slightly softer ground that will see him to better effect. He was second in the Rybo handicap at this festival last year over hurdles as well. So has course form in the bag. So hopefully he can run well. It will have come as no surprise that it is a Paul Nolan horse. Gavin, you said you had a few for us, so rattle them off for us, please.
Yeah, you're a shocking man of these Paul Nolan horses, Andrew. And
We get a Wexford jersey for next episode. I think that has to be done at this stage.
You're a shocking man. You're a shocking man. Paul Nolan this, Paul Nolan that. I've 6 horses to give you for the weekend in handicaps, Andrew, and 2 of them are trained by Paul Nolan.
Oh, I'm gradually brainwashing everybody on this program. But by next year, there's going to be no other horses in training.
So here we go. 6 horses in 60 seconds. First one is Secrecies of Stone on Saturday, 2 mile 5, Lady Riders handicap. Won very well the last day in Leopardstown, has to be kept wide. Only got £7 for that, which seems lenient. Second one is Don't Tell Jack, may not stay, but if it does, it runs in the 3 mile handicap hurdle for JP, Mark Walsh. They had lots and lots of entries in this race. This is the one the Mark is riding. Was second in the point over 3 miles as usual. So if it stays, has a good chance. Syrian Mond is the third one. Runs in the good handicap hurdle on Saturday. Be nice to see Jazzy Matty run well. I won at Cheltenham, but Syrian Mond only had the 1 run for Gavin Cromwell since coming from Tony Mullins. Went up £10 and is quite unexposed. The next one is Conyers Hill on Sunday. Might run in the 2 mile handicap chase or the race that you mentioned, Andrew. But I think for me, as you say, it came from a long way back in the Grand Annual, but I think that the soft ground will be a massive help to that horse. His best form for me was on bad ground, and I think he loved that. The next one is Imad Poor, owned by a syndicate who is headed by a good friend of mine, Ryan McHugh. Did us a favour last Saturday in Bellewstown, is up £9. The ground might be a worry, but it did win on the flat and heavy ground, so perhaps it'll get through the mud. And on Monday in a handicap chase over 3 miles, Folly Master off 130. I think that's got a crack in each way chance. So there are 6 horses and handicaps that all have each way chances.
Very good, Gavin. That's very efficient as well in the time allotted, I must confess. Donn, anything for yourself this weekend?
Just on the horses or the races that we've already covered, Andrew. I think Spindleberry, as you said, is a little bit, maybe a little bit under the radar in the WillowWarm Gold Cup. I do like Irvine Entitlement. I think she's got an awful lot in her favour in the Honeysuckle Mares race. And then Jimmy Desai we mentioned. One that we didn't mention in the 2.5 mile grade 2 chase. If Hartwood takes his chance, I'm not sure what price he's going to be, but he was really good in the Ryanair chase the last day. This is his trip. He's a horse who I think he's still an improving horse. He's only 7. It does seem like he's been around for a while, but I think he's got plenty in his favour. His run of the Savills chase is a really good run, and I think there's more to come from him. And then if Canal End gets into the Irish Grand National, I think his times the last day were good. His sectionals were good. I think he's a progressive horse. He's got a lovely racing weight as well if he gets in. And I think he's well capable of a mark of 129. I think he's got the potential to go a fair way beyond that as a staying chaser.
Very good, Donn. Mark, I'm expecting you to have looked at the 3 cards and come up with something in the lowest rated race, because that's been our form on this podcast throughout the whole year.
Bad news for you now. The first 2 selections that Gavin put up were the 2 that I was putting up here. Secrecy of Stone, again, in the Paul Nolan way of thinking. I think he's definitely, for what he got the last day, could have been an awful lot worse. I think there's more to come there. But the main one is Don't Tell Jack in that novice handicap hurdle final. Been on my mind all season for a decent handicap hurdle. Marco 120 looks fair enough. I always like when those type of horses have the experience of a handicap run before going for what would look their kind of main objective. Hopefully this might be it. Maybe he's a next year horse, but his run particularly at Leopardstown at Christmas. The maiden hurdle won by Copac de Vore, Cowabunga second. Big eye catcher that day. Early on, seemed to lose his stirrup, or there was some bit of attack malfunction early, maybe in the fog, hard to fully see. But when you look at the course track sectionals, finished off very, very strongly. Last furlong, even though he was out with the washing, he was maybe the 3rd fastest through the closing stages. And a horse is bred to be staying this trip too. It is an unknown, as Gavin said, but half brother to Hillcrest, you couldn't get a trip far enough for Hillcrest in my book anyway. Out of shop DJ as well, a great 3 win and mare. Just there's lots there to think that, very unexposed, getting up in trip. I'd be looking forward to seeing him on Saturday in the novice handicap hurdle, 2.7.5. Hopefully Don't Tell Jack will do the job for me and Gavin.
So strong fancies for the guys. Thanks very much to Gavin Lynch, Mark Boylan and Donn McClean, and of course Brian O'Keefe, who joined us midway through the show. Boyle Sports Irish Grand National will be a superb race, and it's a fantastic weekend of racing. If you can get down to Fairyhouse, please go and do so. And of course, avail of any of the offers on Boyle Sports spoken throughout the show in the link in the description down below. When you're down there, please like and subscribe to the Racing TV channel. We'd love to see you on more videos of On the Wire, which will be coming in the coming weeks. But for now, hopefully you have a good weekend, plenty of winners, and we'll see you again soon.
Boyle Sports. Don't just bet, choose wisely.